All right, so welcome to the BackCountry Pa Podcast. I'm Cody. We got Ethan here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners? Maybe how you got into hunting, all that kind of good stuff, and then we have a little icebreaker game that we're gonna just start for this episode. Like, this is the first episode. You're the test dummy for it. So, do you want to, you want to be the test dummy?
I guess so. Not like I have a choice, though.
All right, go ahead, man. Introduce yourself to the listeners.
But yeah, my name is Kyle Bentall. I live in southern New Hampshire. I grew up here my entire life. I've been out to college in Idaho, so that's where I got a lot of my shed hunting and kind of that side of my passion. But my parents are from England, so I did not grow up in a hunting family. My dad's a big gun guy, but my mom is not so much. She was very squeamish the first time I started hunting. The first deer I got, I heart shot it, so I brought the heart home, and she was like, "What the heck?" That's kind of how I got into it. Is I had a lot of my brother's buddy, his dad was like a huge hunter, so we went to his house, and he had like all the mounts up on the wall, and I was just, as a kid, I would be like in awe, kind of like the movie type thing of like a log cabin going to check out your grandpa's deer. So I didn't have that, but I had friends that their parents hunted, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then I just started filming for fun, and yeah, it's been a year of me seriously posting, but I've been filming my hunts for about 3 years now.
That's awesome. That's really cool to, as a new hunter, to get into it and then to jump into filming on top of that. I mean, I'm in my, started when I was 12. Man, I think I'm 17 years in, and I'm just now starting to film this year. It's like, I don't think I could do that when I'm like a couple years in. Like, it would be overwhelming.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I've blown definitely opportunities. I blew an opportunity at a 190-pound, 140-inch deer my first year filming, and that was one of the biggest heartbreaks of my life. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then once I stopped filming later in the season, once I had tagged out in one state, the next state I just tried to get it done, and that was the year I chased a top 10 state record deer in New Hampshire. That was shot last year, but I chased it a couple years previous to that, and it was about like 160 inches then. And when it was killed, it was 178 gross, which,
God,
if you're from New England, they do not get that big ever.
No.
We talked to Ty Forbes up there. He's in Mass.
Yep, and I know Ty very well.
He has some hammers on camera. I don't know if you just saw his Instagram post today. When we're recording this, it is September 20th. So obviously it'll come out a little bit later than that. But he just posted a story of him walking by like a buck. And I was like, oh,
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Dude, I'm sorry, Ty. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I was just texting him about it.
Do you think he would have shot that? Do you think he would have shot? I mean, to me,
I would have sent it.
In Rhode Island, he said it's if it's brown, it's down with antlers. So he said he would have.
Yeah.
But hindsight's 2020. For people that are listening that don't know, he walked and he was videoing his feet while he was walking down the trail, and 2 minutes later the buck came out. So I mean, either way, the buck probably was watching him. He could have stopped and looked around for it. You probably wouldn't have seen the buck anyways, and you probably wouldn't have had a shot. So it's hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. It's one of those things where my dad always was like, when a rifle hunt, you'd walk a little bit, stop, and then walk a little bit more, and then stop again, and that's when you would jump a deer. Like, it's just like they could be watching you 5 yards, 10 yards away, and it's just like after you that second stop, and you look around, they're like, okay, they're nervous and they pounce. Like, it's just how it is with deer.
They pounce on you. The deer pounced.
Yeah.
When I'm in the suburbs, I actually will keep walking and act like I didn't see him. So this year I acted like an old lady. I basically saw this suburban buck while I was walking scouting. He's about 135 inches, 140 inches, and of course, I walk on this trail and he's right in front of me, and I can't go backwards the way I came because it butts up to posted, and I was making a loop. Like, you got to be kidding me. And so I basically said, like, oh, come here, dear. And he just bounded off twice off the trail, and I just walked right past him. I didn't look at him. I didn't stop, and I didn't stare, because then you seem like a predator. So I just kept walking, and any other time that I've seen him, like a deer like that, they don't get bumped out of an area if you just keep walking instead of doing that. It's the same thing with a turkey in pressured area or a deer. If you stop a car on the side of a field edge, they know, but if you're just driving past them, they don't care. They just look up and then go down.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a really good point for suburban hunting. I mean, it could probably work in heavily pressured areas, so like a small park area type thing. Like there's one near me, Speedball Forge, that gets walked all the time, and deer are probably, they're not spooked by these people. So like if you do that with them there, I mean, you might not do the same. It might not happen the same way where like you walk up to them, go like that, they bound a little bit, and then you can walk right by them. They might bounce a little bit more, but you know, you could probably get at least close to them in those kind of places like that. That's good for suburban hunting. But I was thinking about doing that in my tree stand this next weekend, you know, just like,
come here, dear.
Come here.
Okay, give it a shot.
Yeah.
I know someone, his name, what's his name? I don't remember, but he basically had dead to rights. This 8-point was looking straight at him, and he had him 100%. So he said he used to have it in his backyard all the time, and he would talk to it just like a pet. Like we talk to dogs differently than we do wild animals. That's just the way it is. And he said he started talking to it like that while he's drawing back his bow. And he freaking hard shot it. It smoked the thing. It went 40 yards and piled up.
Who's a pretty boy? Who's a good boy?
Who's a good boy? Swap.
That's exactly how he explained. He's like, "Oh, you're a cute little deer, aren't you?" And he's just pulling back.
Oh God, it's a little morbid.
Yeah, if any anti-hunters, man, they would rip us apart over that. Oh well, you know, they'll never listen to this podcast. So the icebreaker game we have, and I just bought this at Walmart, and I was like, hey, that'd be pretty cool. It's almost like Cards Against Humanity. I don't know if you ever played that. All right, so you have, it's called 5 seconds, and that's what the 5-second rule. So you have 5 seconds to answer the question, and it's mostly you have 3 things you got to answer. 2. So we'll start out. We'll just do 1, but I have a little thing right here. I got to flip it upside down, and then when the balls get to the bottom, your 5 seconds is up.
Okay.
All right.
Are these hunting related questions or just?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not even hunting related.
You can make it hunting related if you want to. It has to be like the first 3 things that pop in your head. So because you only have 5 seconds, so it's like you don't have time to think about it.
Getting to know me real fast.
Yep. All right. Let me see here. No, definitely not that one.
You was reading some of these questions to me earlier, and I was like, "Are you sure you want to ask these kind of questions on the podcast?"
Pass.
I'll just do this first. No, that's a show one. Oh, geez, this is great. This is great content for a podcast, right? Just swiping through cards, just waiting to.
Which one do I want?
Great sound audio. Wow, Ethan, what happened to all the good ones?
You asked them all already.
I know.
What?
Where's the animal one that I had? Oh, are you big into Star Wars?
I watched Ahsoka today.
Okay, all right.
Man, I didn't even. I'm behind on that.
It's good. The last episode was good.
We'll do this one here. Name 3 animals that are definitely evil.
Kangaroo, pit bulls. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, time's up.
Gosh, that was hard.
It was
hard.
It was hard.
I
right?
love animals. I'm like, geez, I don't know what's evil.
I mean, definitely kangaroos. Kangaroos are evil. The fact that they box with their feet and they can stand on their tail, definitely
drown people.
Right, definitely evil. I think first another one that comes to mind is the king penguin. I don't know why. Just looking at them,
I almost said
evil.
penguin.
Yeah, they kind of could be evil. Like, I mean, you think of a penguin sliding down at you really fast with that sharp beak. I mean, you're not getting away from that thing.
Leopard seal.
Oh,
Speaking
yeah.
of penguins.
Yes, leopard seal for sure.
Yeah.
Geese.
One does not come to mind.
Geese. Yeah, that's a good
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry. I always
Canadian
I said,
geese.
Yes.
I was like, that is Satan's pet. Like I'd never ever will trust a goose ever. Ever.
Like hiss at you.
Yeah.
Oh god, I see one, I walk around. I don't bother. I've come face to face with a nesting goose while fishing when I was fishing. Oh, it scared the hell out of me. And it didn't luckily it didn't do anything, but I'm 5 yards away and I'm seeing this thing crouched. It looks like a snake with his neck staring at me. I shit my pants. I was out.
Yeah, no, those are three definitely dangerous and evil animals that have been created that sometimes I think should not be here. I don't think penguins, penguins, kangaroos, and leopard seals should not be here. They should not be on God's green earth.
People say sharks, but they're actually one of my favorite animals.
Yep, I agree.
I was like, nope, I love sharks. I swim with them a bunch when I go to places like that. So
yeah, I think people would automatically think of like alligators, crocodiles, sharks, because those things, you look at their teeth and it's like, oh my God, why would anyone want them on the planet? But honestly, I love alligators, I love crocodiles, and sharks. I would love to swim with one.
they're fun.
I mean, have you ever swam with a great white, or is that on a bucket list somewhere?
That's on a bucket list. I've swam with blue sharks. Nurse sharks don't really count as a shark. Black tips. Let's see. What's the ones they have in Mexico that I was around? Tiger sharks and bull sharks. Those are the ones that I've swam around.
Makos are kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, they're fast. Yeah.
They're like the fastest shark. Yeah, my wife loves shark. Like Shark Week is her version of like the Olympics. She watches it she sits down. You cannot bug her. She has the schedule for the entire week, and that is all she does. Shark Week comes out, she's watching it. She loves sharks. That's her favorite.
Man. Well, should we get back to the actual? Let's get back to should we get back to whitetails? I'm sure people don't want to talk about sharks and penguins and all that kind of stuff.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Ethan,
well, we tried the icebreaker.
I like it. I think it's.
It was fun. It was good.
Look,
we just one question and done.
Yeah, one question done. Ethan, you want to go into your questions you got for him?
Yeah. Well, you said like you didn't grow up in a hunting, basically a hunting family. You got through, friends or parents of your friends that got you into hunting. Did you go to them basically like, hey, would you be my mentor, or did you just kind of figure this out on your own?
I'd say a lot of it was trial by error. I think you can read and watch a lot of things, but what works for you is going in the woods and not succeeding, being able to scout and track deer, like especially in the Northeast versus like hunting over food plots, which we don't have. And I can't hunt because I hunt a lot of public land or private permission in small blocks that don't have food plots anyways. So for me, getting out and trying different things, being able to see what works for me, how I can see more deer was one way. I do have like a friend of mine that like owns a giant, one of the biggest companies for like fishing sonars. And then he became like a hunting guide, and he's a professional hunter, if you will. And he was a big mentor in my life. And then I became friends with John Eberhart through technology and learned a lot from him. And I consider him one of the greatest bow hunters of all time. So from him, that guy, and then the rest I learned from YouTube videos, to be honest, from listening to people that are talking about like basically how scent affects things, different scrapes, how to hunt them, instead of just like content that's, oh, I want to watch this because it's exciting. Killing a 200-inch deer versus actual content that's going to benefit me to learn. There's a guy named Jacob Schmidt, and most people don't know who he is, but he talks a lot and like shows you topography and different ways to hunt deer, and that he's one of the people I learned from as well.
Okay. All right. So being friends with John Eberhart, are you big in scent control as well?
I wouldn't say my regimen is as crazy as John's because I think a lot of things are unpredictable. And John gets a bad name just because hunting is an egotistical sport, because people want to say these are the accomplishments I have. This is this. And John is very open about saying that he's never killed any of his records on private land unless it's like knock on door permission.
Right.
For me, I will go where the deer is. If I find a big deer, I don't care whether it's public, private, wherever. But I've never paid to get permission. All my doors I knock, I get permission, whether it's over time or right away.
Right.
But from a scent control standpoint, I use scent lock. I'm the same way. I don't care about the wind, but I keep it in consideration.
Yeah.
If I know a buck's in the area and I know this is how he likes to move with the wind, because every buck's different. Some bucks like it in their face, some like it at their back so they know what's behind them. So for me, understanding what the buck's going to do based on it is more important than how the wind affects me, because it switches all the time.
Yep.
I know the nightmare of choosing, which stand do I go to? Which stand? Oh, the wind switch. Now I'm screwed. My buddy's dealing with that in Maine. And I'm like, dude, just go hunt it. You know the buck's there. He's bedded. It's early season. He's doing the same thing. They're bed to food, bed to food. Like, just hunt the buck, and he's almost too afraid to be aggressive. And for me, I'm just like, I've had more success being aggressive and not worrying about the wind. And I see more deer and more bucks than most of the people that live around me, to be honest. And that's just from asking them how many bucks or deer they see.
Yeah, I think one thing in the early season, sorry, we'll get back to you.
Have at it. I don't know. I don't care.
One thing in the early season, I think more leaves on the tree has kind of an effect on how far your scent will travel, because those leaves are going to hit it. Your scent's going to hit those leaves. It's going to probably stick there, slow it down a little bit, so you have a little bit more time for that buck who's possibly on his way to scrape or, food source, whatever. But in the rifle season, I don't know, with how much pressure there is in PA here, I don't think scent has a huge play in it. Like, if you're setting in tree stand, there's guaranteed to be someone else walking around pushing that deer out anyway. So, I mean, I think early season is when it would have the most effect if you're sitting in a tree stand, because archery season, not many people are going to be walking around to push deer around. But I think you have a little bit more time because of all those leaves in the tree. Once they start to fall, then it's like, okay, now it's going to travel a little further. If you're in the big woods too, bigger mountains, higher elevation, if you're up high, it'll drift down a little quicker. I don't know. I'm also like, I think scent control is good. Like, I'll spray myself down, but also I'm like you, I'll play the wind if I can, but also I'm just going to go hunt to hunt. Like, I'm going to do my scouting, my homework, all that kind of stuff, and make sure all the pieces of the puzzle are there. And then hopefully my scent can hold out long enough that it doesn't hit that deer in the nose, or hopefully he likes to walk with his back to the wind or something like that. Like, I'm right there with you with that kind of stuff. Like, I'll take into effect, but
And I'm not saying people shouldn't care about it. I'm saying you should understand thermals, understand wind, and then decipher whether you care or not and what works for you. Because if you don't know how thermals work or how the wind works, you're kind of screwed, to be honest. So you should learn it first and then figure it out. But did that answer your question, Ethan?
Yeah, no, that's perfect fine. We go down rabbit holes all the time. Like, I'll ask a question, you'll answer the question, and then we'll have 6 other topics that we talk about in between answering the question. So it's okay. But I know I've learned the hard way when it comes to the wind thing. I don't know if it was archery season or rifle season. I was sitting on the side of the mountain. I was before I got into tree stands at all. I was always on the ground, and the wind was going right to left, and it was a doe coming from my left, and she smelled me. She blew, because I didn't even see her. She blew and took off. I was like, well, she smelled me on that one. And then now, ever since then, I've been trying to, kind of at least know which direction the wind's going, so I can try to set myself up in a, better situation than that. So yeah, it's definitely a learning curve to figure it all, and you have to. That's the thing. You have to fail. at least once and then be like, okay, this is what I did wrong. How do I fix it?
Yeah, for me, it's any foreign substance. If you want to say ozonics, that still leaves a smell. So now everybody doesn't do that anymore. So you can say screw that with ozone because it still has a foreign odor. You could say scent lock. Yeah, you're covering up stuff, but you're still going to have it. Deer will smell you either way.
Yeah.
They have like 50,000 olfactory receptors in their nose. A bloodhound has like 5,000 or something crazy. Whatever it is, they have 50 times more than a bloodhound. So they're going to smell you. It's just whether they care or not, or if you get lucky with the wind. Like you can try your best to put yourself in the best scenario, but we live in the big woods where they can come from any direction. We're not on a food plot where we know here's the limited cover that's in this area in a river bottom, and they're going to come out to the field. It's whether which side of the field. That's all you need to know. In Idaho, I freaking wore jeans and I wore like a Real Tree t-shirt, and that's all I needed in December, and I didn't care about scent control, and I saw a buck every day. Yeah. They're just dumber, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, doesn't Troy Pottinger live out in Idaho? Isn't that where he's from? Troy Pottinger out in there. Pretty sure that's where he's from. He's big on scrapes. I know that.
I have no idea. I still don't know all these names, to be honest with you. Like, I'm still like, I know the people like we've had on the podcast, right? And we talk to these people, but then like you guys like name drop people, and I'll be honest, like I just right over my head. And it's like, oh yeah, this guy, he's a killer. He just nope. I'm sorry, I have no idea.
That's not a bad thing to be away from social media, though.
Yeah, that's not bad at all, honestly, Ethan. Like sometimes it gets annoying hearing the same people over and over and over again. It's like, okay, all right, I'm done with that now. It's like, okay, let's move on to someone who's a little different.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it's good. Yeah, because I only ever follow people that we've had on the podcast, so I know, like, okay, we're good. Other than that, I don't.
All right.
Yeah, leave it alone. But so your first year hunting, like what? Talk us through, because like you said, like you didn't really go like the mentor route, like actually having someone there with you. You kind of watched a lot of videos and read and learned that way. What was the first year like, and like, successes, failures by your own definition, and what kept you, going year after year?
Yeah, so my dad brought me probably 3 times, and we didn't see crap. The one time that I did see a buck, it was by total accident. We were in a doe bedding area, and it happened to be the rut, and it was like 5 minutes from my house, and I shot over the back of it and started crying. It was gun season, but during the gun season, you can only shoot a doe for 2 days out of it. So I brought my bow just in case a doe or buck came. But of course, it was a buck that came by me. And I was on the ground, and my dad was like 100 yards behind me. So I go up and I start crying to him, and I had that disappointment. And then we had plenty of opportunities where I'd see does at like last light, but it was like very far and few between. It was more going to this place called Parker's Maple Barn to get food after, because we never saw anything. We just freezed our butts off.
Yeah.
So my dad had no motivation after sitting in the woods so many times. He just did it because he knew I loved the outdoors. But he didn't know anything about it, so we never saw anything. So that was my first year, like, doing it when I was younger, like when I was like 16 or 17. And then I got lucky, and like November 9th, one year I shot a forkhorn, and that was based on like trying new places, so expanding my reach, not hunting the same place every time, because I had never done that. So we hunted like 10 minutes away from my house, then 15. So then once I did that and got into bigger woods, I learned some things, and then I found a couple sheds on a property, and I just hunted that one property and learned everything I could about it. I knew every single deer that lived on that property. I knew the deer that came through it. I knew that where the primary scrape area was. And then I learned I'd go and print. This is before Onyx. I'd go print or go to the town hall and get like topography maps. And that's how I kind of learned about that, and saddles and different things. So that's how I kind of did trial and error. But yeah, I didn't see anything for a long time. So I feel like I paid my dues, but I guess most people would be like, oh, if you started only a couple of years ago and you got this many bucks with it, a bow. You must be doing something right. I'm like,
Yeah.
I took
Yeah.
some mistakes.
Oh yeah. Do you think that failure? Do you think that drove you even more to try and be like successful in your own eyes? Kind of.
100%. And I think that's why New England has some of the best hunters in the country, is because it's so hard. It's not the Midwest or even the West where you can visually see the deer. It's just you're not getting a shot. Versus here, it's depressing at times because you just don't see deer half the time. You could sit all day and not get anything. And you look on social media and you see people shooting these big bucks, but what you don't know is some of the biggest hunters in New Hampshire that kill big bucks is they have 200 cell cameras.
Yeah.
And it's their job or different things. Like, I'd hope you can kill one if you have that many cell cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's for example, I think new hunters now are seeing like I'll name drop Drury, the Bomars. Those are two off the top of my head that I'm thinking of right now. But you look at them and you see all the bucks that they have, and it's like, I can do that. Like, I want to get that. And like they pass up the little 6-point that comes walking by them for their first deer or their first doe, like walks by, like I want to get a buck. It's like, you should get down as many deer as you possibly can right now. Like we talked to Ryan Glitzky about that. Like it's like get deer down, get deer underneath your belt. And I think, social media thing, like you said, and then like all the cell cams, it's their job. Like, yeah, like I think it's, deterring people from staying in hunting because they think they need to get a big buck right away instead of going through the whole process, right? Of like getting the small, the fork horn, for your first buck. Like that's an accomplishment in itself. Like getting any first deer underneath your belt is an accomplishment. Any deer is a success story. Like it's not about the score. It's not about this. Like once you build up enough history with these deer, like then go after the big one. Absolutely. Like I think that's awesome to like build up to that. But like to start right there, or like I see kids now, their parents are getting them into it and like they're setting them up on a food plot and this big 150-inch buck comes out and they shoot it right away. What did that kid learn from that? Absolutely nothing. Like
guess the retention rate of those kids to come back to hunting after they've shot a buck like that.
Well, they want to, but like then when they see that, when they don't see another one like that, it's like, what? Then I think that leads to poaching. I think that leads to people baiting. I think that leads to people doing things illegally, hunting at night, spotlighting during rifle season. You have, like, I've come across numerous bait piles here in PA where you can't bait anywhere on state game lands, and I think it leads to that. Like it's deep to say that, but yet I honestly think that is like if you set a kid up, he gets a 10-point his first year. Like that's great especially if the parent did all the work. Like you want to see that for your kid, but yet how's that going to help him in the long run?
Yeah. And if you do set him up for success, I would never let my kid kill a booner for his first, like there's some 7-year-olds or some famous people's girlfriends that they're getting giant bucks for their first year. Like if we don't understand why we hunt as individuals, we've already lost. Like if you don't remember, I'm a very religious guy. So for me, like being outside kind of saved me from the other world because I don't drink or smoke. So I had a lot of friends that like wanted to party and do different things. And I lost some friends because I wanted to do these things and kind of take away from that. And that's when I was younger, like, and in high school and stuff, I didn't have time to hunt because I also played 4 sports. So I really didn't have time. But for people that, they just get success early and the retention rate's probably like 15% for someone that kills a huge buck right away because they just don't see it the same.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sorry, that was a rant that I always think about that when I see this and it's like, man, it's just like it irks me, honestly. It's like so annoying because like maybe it's because that's not how I grew up, or maybe it's because I don't have friends that had that happen. But it's like I just don't think that's the correct way to do it. I wouldn't want my daughter to do that. You know, like I don't want to set my daughter up to shoot the big. I'd rather her shoot like a spike or even like a small doe, like just something that she put the work in. Like I don't do the scouting for her. Like her and I go out and we hunt just a random spot, a new spot that none of us has gone to, and just do that. Like maybe we see deer, but that's it. Yeah. Ethan, back to you.
Who knows? I don't have kids yet, so I don't know. I'd have to figure that out later at some point. But it took me a while to get my first deer, so I'll make if I had kids, I'm making them struggle just like I did.
Mm-hmm.
I sound like an old man. I struggled, so do you.
Intentionally breaks their trigger release.
Yes. I guess it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Jeez. What was I gonna say? Well, first off, is it like this in all New England states where the deer pop is just so low? Because was it Maine? I think it's like what, 1 deer per square mile.
Yeah.
Like that's Is it all New England states are like that?
Depends where you are. Massachusetts, no. There's quite a few deer, like especially like in the suburbs. Like I love people from Mass, but like going from New Hampshire to Mass hunting is not the same. Like
No.
It's not uncommon for me to have 4 to 8 does under me. Like sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's like a frequent thing, but like it's happened to me on multiple occasions, and I cannot say the same for and that's like small pieces of private in the suburbs, but overall I think they're at like 8 deer per square mile, and New Hampshire's at like 4. In Maine it's the lowest in the big woods, but on the island, like where I killed my big buck 2 weeks ago,
mm-hmm.
that buck, there's like 50 to 60 per square mile on the islands because there's limited hunting and stuff. So
50 to 60. Oh man, I'd like
but
that.
There's not many miles, so that's
true. Sounds like a good problem to have on that one. If you get lucky enough to hunt the island.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's go down. Oh, go ahead, Ethan.
I was gonna say, what made you go? Because you did big woods and suburban hunting. Like what made you want to like switch between each one? Go, you started with the big woods, right?
Yeah. So, well, I guess it depends what you consider big woods. I mean, mountain laurel and like big stuff, but it's not like I'm like 3 to 4 miles into the places where I have been before, but most of the places where I live, you can't go that far. You can go 1.5 miles in, and that's probably as far as you'll get in the center of where there's people. But it actually was an accident. So in New Hampshire, you have to buy 1 tag for your archery, and then if you want to get a secondary one, you have to buy them at the same time. But the second one is a buck only. So the first one is either sex. I didn't know you had to buy them both at once. So I bought one and I killed a doe on the opening day of the 2020 season. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm so psyched. I'm going to go buy the next tag. I go online. It says, you are not able to buy this tag. I'm like, what the fetch? So I call up fishing game officer, my buddy, and I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's like, oh, you have to buy them both at once. It's like the way that it works. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So my parents are like, well, this is great. Now you don't need a hunt. I'm like, screw that. I'm like, Massachusetts, how much is out of state tag? So I ended up doing that, and then I ended up killing 5 deer in total that year with my bow. So it was fun.
Wow.
That's awesome.
What kind of broadhead were you using for that?
I just used fixed Muzzy blades, which is also a funny story.
Yeah.
So obviously I didn't have like all the nicest equipment. So I actually had a guy from Facebook on the New Hampshire page, Matt Carter, amazing dude. He sent me broadheads for free in the mail.
Yeah.
And I used those broadheads. I had like rage broadheads, and I'm like, these are retarded. I'm not going to use these. And the blades kept opening, and the rubber things kept falling off. And I was like, nope, I'm just going to go to a simple fixed blade. He sent me some Muzzies. The deer I killed the other day was still with one of those that he sent me. Now I have like G5 broadheads and fixed blades, but I don't. If I was like out west or somewhere where I'd be doing more spot and stock, I would definitely use the the day 6 or iron will and do like a heavy setup like the hunting public.
Right.
But for me, I just use cheap mossy oak or real tree arrows, and I use a fixed blade, and every deer I've shot except for one has died within sight. So
Wow. Yeah. So actually that's a good, I had one question. So as a new hunter getting into it, what did you find that you felt you needed that actually turned out to be complete BS?
the spray bottles for like scent, it's
Yeah.
it's water basically.
Yeah.
Scented water.
Yeah. It's dirt water.
BS.
It's dirt water.
I need my scent crusher little spray.
Do you think I know they have scent crusher bags and they have those things you put in your truck, like the cigarette lighter thing where you like press that and like this destroys your scent. Well, it says it does, like it destroys odor.
I don't know what that is. No.
I have one in my truck actually. It like destroys the scent. Like it gives off a weird smell, like an ozone type smell to it. Like it actually makes my truck kind of smell good when I drive. I'm like, there's no way this thing would be good. Cover my scent when I go in the woods. Like this is gonna smell right away when I walk in. So the scent bottles is what was BS to you.
Yeah, that or my dad was like, he didn't know any better, but he was like, you need to put out scent bombs. So he took tampons and like dipped it in all these like Gold Rush pee or whatever and put them out. I never saw a freaking deer. If a deer smells that, they're like, oh, that smells terrible. They know it's not natural. They're used to tiny drops of pee.
Yep.
So there's a video on YouTube. I always tell people it's called like hunting strategies with this one dude. And he explains, if you get into a car with someone that has a lot of perfume, what do they say? They're not like, oh, you smell good. It's like, ew, that's not natural. Get out of there. It's the same thing with a buck. And when a buck leaves, or like someone says, oh, you lift the seat up or whatever, it's because you drip. So when it's going like this, when he's walking, you need to put drips if you're going to do it. So I don't use any scent. I pee in my mock scrapes, and I've had one scrape where I have a 130-inch buck on it right now, and he's there every other day in mass right now. And that buck, I've never had to do anything. I have like 10 bucks showing up on it, and I've never put any scent. The one thing I will do is I'll tie it onto my boot, or I'll hang it in the tree as a tarsal gland from a buck I kill.
Okay.
I just put it in a freezer and then bring it with me. That's the only outside scent I'll use.
Okay. So drag rope, you use that?
Basically,
yeah. All right. Yeah, I use that. I use that a few times. My boss that he did that, and like 10 minutes after he got to the stand, this little spike was like right on the line to him. I was like, I mean, it works. So I tried using it a few times. Might try it this year. Who knows?
I've heard the old timers will say in Maine, like dip your boots or leave them in rabbit poop. And the buck was chasing my feet, checking what I was. And I'm like, I'm sure I believe that. I don't want to leave my boots in.
No, I have a rabbit. I could leave my boots in the poop. It would work.
Same kind of poop, but yeah.
No.
I mean, I had a conversation. Deer are just curious. They're very curious creatures. Like Derek, who we just talked to for the rut. Like he called a lot during the rut, and I think deer are very just curious about like what they're hearing, or like even like if you like the first scent you put in the woods. Like I know you don't put scent down in like mock scrapes or anything like that, but like I feel like early season is probably the best time to put a scent down in a scrape, because that deer's gonna be like, oh, that's the first estrus he smelled that year, like right off the bat. Like if it's the first estrus you put in that scrape, they're gonna be curious. I mean, it might not be the buck you're after, but it might be a buck that you want to see. Like it just will keep your spirits up, kind of. And that was very interesting to me to put it out or in the early season, even though it's not the right time to put it out or whatever. And you could get lucky with it. Honestly, the wind's right, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, deer will definitely check it out. They're always curious. I'm not saying scents won't work. It's just I'd rather get daylight movement when I know he's going to be checking it or hooking to a scrape, and not I don't know. It's not for me, but I'm sure it works for people. And if a buck's horny enough and dumb enough, he'll come in no matter what. So
100%, just like the moon phases. You know,
Just like
do you go by
moon
that? Do you go
phases.
by moon phases at all?
I do.
Do
That's how
you?
Do you
Yep.
really?
I called
We've
my
just had this
shot
conversation.
3 days before I killed my main buck. I called it.
Oh
day.
shit!
Every time, like, I'm not saying it's a go by it all be end or whatever.
Mhm.
All right, I won't hunt if it's not a moon phase, but based on the trail camera data I have, and also when I've killed deer, 3 days before a new moon and 3 days after, and then the day of the new moon are usually the best hunting. So the new moon was the 14th. So I said I'm gonna try to kill one on the 11th. Killed my biggest bow buck on the 11th this year.
Wow.
And then during the rut, the full moon, if it's cloudy at night for the full moon, the next day, midday action rut will be crazy.
Okay.
That's one thing that a lot of people, Dan Infalt said that, John Eberhart said that, and that I've seen it too.
Yeah. So describe the new moon, because I'm trying to get a grasp of this, because I'm really interested in hearing how people have success off hunting that. So what is the new moon per se?
So it's nothing special. It's literally just a moon phase. So there's like crescent moons or whatever, and there's different like cycles of the moon. So there's like, it's basically, it looks like it's dark. So new moon is just, there's no moon at all basically. And then you get waxing gibbous, waning gibbous, all those things. I don't really worry about those. I focus mostly on like full moon and new moon.
Okay.
But yeah, so usually like the October 6th is when I think the next around like full moon will be, and usually around then is when I get trail camera photos, like 6th to the 8th, and then the 16th to the 24th is when I see scrapes go crazy.
Okay.
That's when I've seen the biggest bucks in the woods like ever. Like I've seen giant bucks at that time of year. And then of course November, like the 7th to the 11th is always good, give or take a few days on each side. And then usually they're in lockdown by like 15th to the 17th. And then the most important moon phase, I'd say, beyond anything, if your season's still open, is give or take 2 days on each side, December 15th. I've killed almost, I'd say 50% of my bucks have been late season with a bow, even if it's during muzzleloader season, hunting the fawns that are going into estrus for the first time, which is December 15th. Like the first new moon or full moon, they go into estrus during that December 15th period, and the bucks just get crazy. I've literally smelled, like, it looks like pink in the snow. I've smelled the estrus from a fawn that's gone into her first cycle.
Wow.
And that was before I was even like big into hunting. I was just tracking, looking for sheds, because I didn't know that they didn't shed in December. That's how dumb I was. Like some of them shed in December, but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just waiting for snow. So
that's pretty cool. I that's definitely something I want to learn more about, is the moon in general. Because like a lot of people are talking about the red moon, like hunting that red moon, all kind of like, do you have any like gist on that? Do you have any idea about that? Like I know a lot of people also say like overhead, underfoot. So like there's a lot of things that people go off of for the moon phase.
I mean, all hunting is subjective. I think a lot of people have different opinions. There's no right answers.
No.
I think there's scientifically things that will get deer moving, barometric pressure changing. Same thing with bass fishing. When there's a high pressure right after a lightning storm, all the bugs come out. The bass start feeding. It's just things that happen. And if you're in the right place at the right time, I could be in one stand and there could be no activity. Like tonight, I only saw a fawn. My trail camera went off and I had like 4 bucks on it like an hour before sunset. So it's all subjective. The red moon, I believe it's a real thing. I just refuse to pay for something that I don't really care about.
Right.
So I don't want to pay for the subscription or whatever it is, because you can only see the month previous, I think.
Yeah.
Or however it works. So I don't really care about that. I look at 2 dates in the whole month. I look at when the new moon is, when the full moon is, and give or take the 3 days in front or after. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's very subjective. Like for me, it's I like to be out there. I know a lot of people do this, but like when it's raining, like especially if I see like it's raining and then like at a certain time, like 2 hours after, like it's gonna stop. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be in that, like, yeah, it's gonna suck to sit in that rain, but I'm gonna be out there because I know he's gonna hit this scrape, or a buck's gonna hit this scrape after it's done raining. Like
100%.
I do that every single time. Like I make sure, like if I see it's raining close to even the pre-rut time frame, rut time, especially pre-rut, I'm in that tree stand. Like a lot of people will head out after it's done raining, and I'm just like, man, you want to be in there while it's raining at. Like it's gonna suck. Get some rain gear, but buckle up and stick it out.
If you're at the right primary scrape, that buck's probably bedded within 300 yards of it anyways. So you need to be there already before the rain stops. So that's a good point. I'm the same way. If it's pouring, me personally is like, it's not really worth it because I know they're not going to move as much.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I have seen deer move during the rain. So it's just any inclement weather that's like extreme. So my buck was right before the hurricane came. That's why I also knew that the deer were going to be moving because the hurricane came. So that, snowstorms, all that sort of stuff cause movement.
Oh yeah. So let's get into that hunt that you just got a buck down. This was, so we'll also get in this too because it kind of connects, I think, the New England Grand Slam, right? So this is the first buck of that slam?
Yeah. So my professional hunting buddy chastised me. He jokingly, he's like, well, actually a slam is 4 states. I'm like, but I live in New England. It's hard enough. I'm just doing 3, at least to start.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if I want to get mature bucks or how I'm going to work that out because right now it's just bow. But I went to Maine. I have a buddy that lives on this one island. So the video will be out this weekend or the next weekend. So I'll figure that out. But it's like 29 minutes long. It explains my whole journey of that. But I basically saw the moon phase and the hurricane was coming. I'm like, I want to go now because he was like, oh, usually early October is better. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I want to come now. And it was like, it's been raining there. Like when I went, it had almost rained the whole time I was there. So I was like, but it kept stopping. Like you said, it would stop and it would go and it would stop and it would go. But I knew that the deer would be moving. All of his cell cameras had been going off recently. And I just hunted a big saddle and there was some bucks in velvet, some weren't, and mine just recently shed. So he came in, and I might have bumped him that morning getting in the stand. I switched stands 3 times that day. So
indecisive about it, or just
one spot I went to, like in the morning, I bumped the buck, and then I didn't see anything. Then I went to another spot under a crabapple tree. Which, like on the islands, there's crabapple trees and apple trees on a lot of these islands in Maine. And that's like a big food source the first couple weeks of September. So I keyed on that and had like a velvet 6-point that was like probably 70 inches, maybe. And I was like, oh, I'm going to shoot that deer. I was like, I can't do it. I had like a 50-yard shot, 40-yard shot. I'm like, I can't do it. And he was with like a forkhorn and a couple other does, and I was like, I can't do it. And then I switched again to a different spot, and I mean, I was on the ground, and I was getting bitten alive. I'm like, I think I counted 42 bug bites on my arms. And I'm all for being outdoorsy, but man, I couldn't handle it. I literally, that night sleeping, had like in my head, even though like they weren't there, I was like going like this, but my arms were just like all swollen, and I was like, nope, I'm moving spots. So I went back to the saddle because that's where my gut feeling said to go. And at 6:28, the buck started to come out like 30 minutes before sunset, and came up, and he was about to come right in my shooting lane. Got all excited. But since I was an idiot, I ruined my scent lock and sprayed a little bug spray in the air because I was like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
So he smelled that. He went like this, almost like he was lip curling, but he was just licking his face to get his receptors going, basically to smell what was going on. he knew something was wrong. So he had piebald white feet.
Mm-hmm.
So like people call it white socks. So he put them out like he was stretching like a dog to like lean like this. And he was smelling and he knew not to go down that trail, the shooting lane. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Stood there for what felt like 30 minutes. It was probably like 5 or 10. And then started to try to go downwind of me. And he reached about like halfway to my left, and I had one shot at like 25 yards. So I pulled back my bow. I'm like, it's either I get it on film or I kill the buck. I'm like, I'll just film him after. And
Right.
I'm sorry. It's one of the biggest bucks of my life. I'm people don't talk about it if I don't kill it. So
Yeah.
I pull back the deer. I'm like, I'm a hunter first. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a videographer. I don't care about YouTube like I do, but hunting's my passion.
Right.
I shoot him and I just hear whack and I see the knock go into him and I'm like, okay, I either got a full pass through or at least up to the fletchings.
Mm-hmm.
He runs 15 yards with his tail tucked. I'm like, well, that's kind of a good sign. And then he just stands there at 40 yards from me. I'm like, are you going to do anything? Most of the deer, like, I'll see them run and they'll tip over or they'll let out a roar if I like double lung them.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to get worried. So I'm like, do I take another shot? And I was told if you ever can get a second shot, take it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have an angle and crap. Like I was shooting through like 20 bushes, but I was just like, I'll try to fling one. So I shot and it hit like 3 limbs and deflected and he ran off out of the hardwoods to a field edge in someone's backyard, basically, because you're in a pretty small area.
Mm-hmm.
He runs there and just starts panning like this. So I take my little handy cam, I'm zooming in like basically instead of my binos. So I'm zooming in so I can record it and he's panting and then he starts to do the wobble.
Oh, the wobble.
I'm like, frick, yeah. And I'm thinking he's going to go down, but he does it for 15 minutes.
What?
Jeez.
Like this. And then I zoom in, he's got this giant stuff hanging out of him. You can see it. I got a full pass through. He's got stuff hanging out of right behind his shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Where you would think his heart is. It looks like his lungs or guts are falling out. I'm like, how is he not dead?
Right.
If I got a full pass through, there should be enough blood pumping. I didn't see any blood coming out of his mouth, which normally there is.
Right.
Now that I think about it, I don't think there was any blood out of his mouth. I think he just bled internally.
In the picture, it didn't look like there was much blood coming out of his mouth or hardly anything there at all.
No, and I didn't even clean it. So now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was just all clotted internally. But anyways, the fiasco went on that he bedded, and then I watched him for 15 minutes. I started calling all my buddies, everything, and asking them what I should do because I can see the buck at 80 yards right now the whole time. So it's starting to get super dark, and then I see him start to get up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, maybe I liver shot him or gut shot him, maybe. He gets up, he can't do it. He sits right back down, like, and folded up and went right back down. I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. He's still panting. All my buddies are saying if his head's up, that's a bad sign. If his head's down, that's like a good sign. And it's kind of like sagging. And I feel like he put his head down. I waited 30 minutes in the dark, went back to my tent in my buddy's yard, and basically talked to him. I couldn't wait after 2 hours. It was pouring rain at this point. I'm like, I can't wait. So I go find my arrow. Dark blood. There's some bubbles on it, but then the end of it almost looked like guts, but I couldn't tell if it was the mud or not.
Right. Yeah.
Long story short, we back out. There's no predators. There's no coyotes on the island. The worst thing you can do, especially in the rain, is bump him, and then he's in a different bed. So I'm like, I'm not going to go check the bed that he sat down in until the morning. It was the worst. Like, I wanted to just go out there and check.
Yeah.
We wake up the next morning at like 5 or 6 a.m. and go out there, and he's like, okay, you ready to go check? I'm like, yep. So we go out there, and it's not 20 or 30 yards. There was no blood in his bed.
Ooh.
I was like, where the fetch did this deer go?
Yeah.
So instead of grid searching, I just went down where I thought the direction that he could have gone. And I look up and he's right there. So it looks like he got up, ran, and just collapsed. Because so he didn't bed down a second time. He literally just ran 20 yards and just collapsed. And I thought I heard a crash when I was getting down my tree stand, but I thought I just bumped him when I got down, but it sounds like that's where he crashed because his rack was all like in the weeds and stuff, almost like he just fell and collapsed, and his legs weren't folded either.
Wow. Well, he was definitely a beautiful buck, man. Like that was a beautiful buck. Like nice chocolate rack.
Yeah.
Like it was just amazing. And I'm sure it felt even better for you. Like
it was
starting
20 inches wide. So I was,
man, that's a nice buck.
And his main beam is 20 inches too.
Oh, okay. All right. What did you think he scored?
So I grossed him again today at 132.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
If you want to catch or count the thing that like you can add onto a ring, it would be like 132 and a half or whatever.
Okay. All right.
But it's not an inch, so you can't count it. But
yeah.
So he nets like 129 unofficially. I'm gonna get him probably checked, but I don't really care. I was happy.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
And he was like part piebald, so it was even cooler.
Yeah. And that's a start to your slam, like your New England slam. So how did that come about? Why were you like, you know what, I'm going to do a slam? Like what drove you to start that?
I know a bunch of guys from the Just Hunt Club and those sort of things. And I'd watched sea bucks, and that's kind of what I grew up like watching since I'm still younger. And I was like, you know what? I want to give myself a challenge. I moved back here from Idaho, and I was like, I broke up with my girlfriend, and I'm just working right now. And I basically have nothing to lose. This is the last season I'm going to have where it's like, I'm probably not married or like have nothing else to have to do. So with my job I do, it's like a summer sales job. So I'm like, I can take off the time to just hunt like crazy and try to put some deer down and make some content. Cause I got monetized about 8 months ago or something. So ever since then I've just tried to post, and now we're almost to 10,000 subscribers in a year. So it's been really good.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I mean, why not set your goals high? Like, why not? You know, like I think that's the biggest thing is like sometimes people are scared to do it. And it's just like, why not? What do you have to lose? Like, it's just a video. It's just a podcast. It's just, you know, as long as you enjoy hunting, first of all, like if someone goes out and hunts just because they wanted to make money off it, I think that's where the issue is. And I think, you know, if you go into like, oh, I love hunting, let's see if I can videotape. Let's see how a podcast sounds. Let's see how this video turns out. Like, you know, but foremost, like what you said, you know, like you're a hunter first. You didn't get the kill shot on camera because you're more worried about getting the buck down. And I think that's the big thing that people have to, if you're getting to filming, that's one thing. Like, don't try and like stretch yourself where like you don't shoot that buck. Like, I think that's a big thing. So mad props to you for doing that. And what are the other states you're going to in the slam?
So my home state right now, like where I was out hunting tonight, is New Hampshire. It's very hard to hunt the big woods with a bow, just because if you're not on top of a buck's bed within the first week, he's not going to be there. And I focused all my scouting in Massachusetts. So I have one target buck in New Hampshire, but he travels 5 to 8 miles every other day. So he's about impossible to track down. Like my buddy found a shed, and I've had tons of trail camera history with him for like 2 or 3 years while I was away. And with combination of like other people talking about him, I've known about him for a while, but he's a 12 point. But he's just in the middle of nowhere. So that one's harder, but Mass is where I've focused all my time because I have like a 150, 160 I'm after. So,
all right. Are you connected with Ty? Is he setting you up with some properties?
Nope. So I don't have anyone give me permission of properties. I knock a lot of doors and talk to a lot of people. That's how I think I was adding it up so I could tell you on this podcast. I think I have like 87 permission spots.
Okay.
Or if not more.
Altogether, like in multiple states, or is that just one?
I think just in Mass I have like 70.
Wow.
A lot of them are smaller. They're not like huge chunks. I'm talking like some of them are half acres.
Okay. All right.
Or like very small.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your biggest tip for getting permission?
I could do a whole podcast on that, to be honest. It's a lot more challenging, people say, now than the olden days, because the hunting culture, people don't understand it.
Right.
But I also think it can be done in any state. The two bucks that I killed in Idaho, the Pope and Young, and then the one that was 123 inches, I killed those 2 deer off of permission piece. Everybody hunts in Idaho. Nobody gives out permission. Leasing is starting to happen. There's a lot of different factors. It doesn't happen as much in New England. But just telling the people, being human, doing favors for them. I almost never ask right off the start for hunting permission. Okay. I usually ask trail camera, wildlife photography, doing something else, and then getting permission down the road once they trust me.
Yeah,
is usually the way I'll do it. I can leverage my job, which I don't do that. That's probably like 3% of my spots that I have, and that's only if I know a giant buck's in the area and I'm like, I want permission. I look for like some customers to like my pest control company, but I don't need to do that. I feel like I can talk to anyone, so I just knock on people's door on like a Saturday when they're probably home or not too late at night, and I dress up in really nice clothes. Okay. I dress up in like a shirt without a tie, like a button down, like what I'd wear to church or something. I don't go in camo ever. I do it 6 months in advance usually, or in the summertime. And I don't do it right on the spot. I've had permission spots like that where I'll be like, oh, can I hunt just today? And then go back and try to get it again. But the majority of the properties, I'm building a relationship with them. But some people don't have that time to build a relationship, but it depends how bad do you want the spot.
Yep.
I have a spot in New Hampshire. I have a food plot on it. I convinced the landowners to pay for the food plot, to pay for all the seeds, to pay for all the glyphosate, basically to tell them I can improve your habitat and in turn look nice, but for me create better hunting. And they paid for it all.
Wow.
And they're not family friends or anything. They're like very weird, like don't like talking to people.
Yep.
Now they call me up and talk to me all the time. Like they have one daughter and she's like the mom's a college professor. Like they just hate people and they like let me onto their 19 acres and unofficially off the record stocked bass in the pond, and now there's giant bass. So
man, they paid for a whole food plot for you. Man, look at that.
For 2 years. So
that's impressive.
I haven't even killed a deer. I don't hunt it really, but it's kind of cool for trail cameras. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Ethan, you got any more questions over
there? That half-acre spot that you said is like, how do you even go about hunting it? Like, because that's not a lot of room to work with.
I'd say, I mean, usually those are like rut areas where I know that does go into estrus during a certain time. So that goes into like finding Facebook spots where someone will be like, oh, this big buck is in my backyard. Nah, nah, nah. Then I find their last name and then I knock on their neighbors' doors. I never ask the people that posted on there because they're usually Karens or like wildlife lovers. So I never ask those people. I just ask the neighbors. And then, so it's usually if I know it bucks in the specific area or I have past history. So I'll look at Facebook posts usually up until 2 or 3 years ago, just to know a general area where they rut and what time of the year. And that way I have a general consensus of, are the genetics good in this area? What time of the year are they rutting? And then I'll go from there. But my biggest buck I killed in 2020 was on a property that was probably 1/3 of an acre.
Okay. Wow.
Like sliver.
Yeah.
But it was in a neighborhood, like basically a
little
that led out. Yeah, not a cul-de-sac, but I mean, if I showed you on a map, you'd be like, "What the heck are you doing there?"
Right.
But it was legal because I got permission from. So there's a loophole. So in Massachusetts, you need to be 500 feet from a house.
Mm-hmm.
If you get permission from multiple houses that are all within that, you can get away with it.
Right.
But if you don't do that, there's a lot of people that break the laws and do a lot of shady crap, and it's unfortunate. But
Yep, it is.
I've heard stories of doing some sketchy stuff, and I could get away with. I could have killed a booner by now if I wanted to break the law in the suburbs. So I find bait piles, all that stuff on public too.
That goes for a lot of people. I mean, I could probably kill a booner too if I broke the laws, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I could probably have that 10 down that I've been after if I broke the laws.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with social media, I feel like you can't get away with anything nowadays. Even if I wanted to, I would get caught. So there's no point of risking it.
Nope. There's no. Just go out there and have fun and just enjoy the whole freaking process, right?
Oh yeah.
Rapid fire now. You ready? Rapid fire questions here, Kyle. You ready? YouTube or TV hunting shows?
YouTube.
I kind of figured that was going to be the case. Rifle or archery?
Archery.
Public or private?
Either.
What's your go-to snack in the woods?
I usually don't eat. I usually starve myself because I'm in go mode.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, man. You're a tougher man than I am.
I need something to eat out there.
I can eat before I get in the woods, usually, is what I say.
Man.
Maybe a Costco muffin, maybe.
Okay, Costco muffin. All right. What kind of muffin? We going plain, blueberry, chocolate chip?
Chocolate chip.
Pumpkin?
Yeah.
The super chocolatey one.
Oh, the super chocolate one. The chocolate muffin with the chocolate chips in it.
Yeah.
Man, that's oh man.
If the deer smell that, they're coming. No, I'm just
yeah.
Like, what can I put in here that possibly has a good smell to it that a deer would come in?
Yeah, pumpkin would definitely do that.
Yep.
A lot of people put pumpkins from Halloween in their backyard.
Oh yeah.
Yep. See posts about that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Deer love them.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Kyle, where can people follow you if they want to follow along with you, if they want to watch your YouTube content, see some of this, some of the slam you got going on, all that kind of good stuff?
Yep. So you can follow my YouTube. It's my initials, so it's KBB Outdoors, all one word. And then on Instagram, it's KBB Outdoors 2.0 because someone else took the first name. It might have been me from when I was younger. And then I also have the Bows, Bros, and Bucks podcast, but I'm not going to be posting on there too much just because of the New England slang. So.
Okay, cool. Well, man, it's been awesome talking to you, hear about all your stories, how you got into hunting, the slam, the buck you just got down, talk a little scent control, talk a little, little this, little that. It's pretty cool, and I'm glad you're able to come on and even take part in our first game of the podcast.
I definitely failed it, but I'm glad I could be on. I really appreciate your guys' time. I know you're busy folks and you have a real life and you're not 23, so.
Yeah, my wife was texting me like, "Are you done yet?"
If Kyle shuts up, we are.
I'm like, oh, I didn't text her back. She's inside, it's all right. But yeah, really enjoyed the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, dude.
No problem, man.